How's it going, everybody? My name's Isaiah, this is Oregon Rockworks, and today I want to talk about the big names in Central Oregon plume agate. I'm going to show examples of a couple key varieties and give a little bit of information on how to tell them apart. Hope you learned something. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Let's check out some rocks. The big five that I want to talk about today are, from left to right here, Powell Butte, Robinson Ranch, Carey Ranch, Hay Creek Ranch, and Eagle Rock. These five have plumes that all look somewhat similar. With the exception of Powell Butte, the other four have a pinkish matrix that looks somewhat similar. All five of these materials form in veins, and they all come from a pretty small geographic area in Central Oregon. The other two Central Oregon plumes I want to cover today are Priday Plume, shown right here, hard to confuse for anything else because it forms in thunder eggs, and Nydegger Ranch Plume, which does form in veins but is also hard to confuse with anything else, from Central Oregon at least, because it's white plume. I would like to limit the scope of this video to just Central Oregon today. There are many more plumes in the state of Oregon. Here's an example of Leathers Ranch and Graveyard Point Plume, both from Eastern Oregon. They're just not materials I particularly collect. I don't have a lot of examples. Here's another Eastern Oregon material, Stinking Water Plume. So there are many other plumes that I'm not talking about today. Those are just a few examples of Eastern Oregon stuff. Maybe that'll be down the line. It's not necessarily something I collect at this time. I'd like to start here with Eagle Rock. Eagle Rock, Carey, and Robinson all come from basically a straight line of deposits, sort of south and southeast of Prineville, Oregon. I think the easiest way to tell Eagle Rock is this hard, stripy pink matrix. I think it takes a slightly better polish than the pink rhyolite you'll see on a lot of these other Central Oregon plumes. Outside of the Nydegger Ranch Plume, which I'll cover in a little bit here, Eagle Rock is the only Central Oregon material I know of where you'll frequently get white plumes. Here are just a few more examples showing what the matrix looks like. It's stripy pink, a little bit darker than some of the others, and you'll often get these agate-filled vugs. I don't know if they're the start of thunder eggs necessarily, but I do see it pretty frequently. 3 examples here sort of showing it. Some Eagle Rock material does not show that pink matrix. The black plume variety like this can be challenging to tell apart from Marfa Plume out of Texas or Medicine Bow Plume out of Wyoming. In this case, the bluish agate tells me this is Eagle Rock, as well as this golden moss is really a telltale. Love the plumes in this piece. And of course, there's plenty of agate out of Eagle Rock that doesn't show plume. This one is showing that pinkish matrix in the corner here. Once again, a little bit of that golden color, but this is Eagle Rock agate without defined plumes. Still nice looking agate. This is Carey Plume, also from southeast of Prineville, Oregon. The biggest identifier here, I would say it's the reddest matrix of these plumes, and it's got these fine red plumes, sometimes with yellow, in a clear agate background. Here's an example of some with the yellow. I think this material is probably slightly more appropriately called dendritic, just because of how delicate and dainty these plumes are. They don't have a lot of volume by comparison to some of the other ones. Yeah, really pretty agate background. This one's a little less clear, a little bit yellower. Can be sort of scenic. The details in the agate can sometimes look like clouds, which is really cool. And the very, very best, which I have basically none of, shows red plumes with black tips. This is almost approaching that, but it's not quite a world-class example. This is Powell Butte Plume agate from Powell Butte, Oregon. It's probably the rarest of the red-black plumes out of Central Oregon. The plumes tend to have quite a bit of length to them and a real direction of growth. Here's a cool cab. Nice detail and texture. And the background of this material is much less clear. I describe it sort of as almost like a dirty dishwater. But this material tends to be full of plumes. You don't often see matrix on this material, but when you do, It's more of this crumbly gray sort of look. And the other thing you'll notice is you'll get these empty spaces where the plumes were. So you get a lot of these almost like negative plumes. Cool mix of red and black, length to the plumes, clear direction of growth. Yeah, not a super clear background, kind of an off yellow color, but just loaded with plumes. Don't have enough water there, but gives you an idea. Many plumes, all growing together. Cool stuff. This is Robinson Ranch Plume from outside of Prineville. This material can be confused with either Powell, Butte, or Eagle Rock in my experience. And since they're hard to identify, it also makes it hard to describe how to identify it. But the big thing here is very fine, sort of spidery black dendrites in a white agate background transitioning to clear, and you'll get these splashes of pink both in the plumes here and then in this matrix. I don't quite know what to call this structure. Here's another example. Fine black dendrites in a whitish fading to clear agate background. Black and red plumes on white. The plumes don't have a lot of volume to them, like compared to those Powell Butte plumes that were thick and more three-dimensional. Here's a nice big chunk of rough. You will see a pink matrix on this stuff, which should, for the most part, differentiate it from Powell Butte when you see it. And the plumes are mostly black in a white background, and they're very fine. So, plumes are tough. Plumes are really tough to tell apart. This is not a comprehensive guide, and it takes time, and I still get stumped. So, don't worry. It's hard to learn. This material is from the Hay Creek Ranch outside of Ashwood, Oregon. The big identifier here is the pinkish yellow moss and this slightly softer looking pink rhyolite. Oftentimes these agates will be topped with angel wing. This is not a great piece, but you can get some really cool agate sculptures out of this location. This gives you an idea of the black plumes with this lighter pink colored matrix and the pinkish moss. So don't have a whole lot of this, but that's Hay Creek Plume. This is Priday Plume from Richardson Ranch, also outside of Ashwood, Oregon. This is pretty hard to confuse with anything else because it's a thunder egg. I know there are a lot of other thunder eggs with plumes, but the Priday is pretty unique. Sometimes you'll see it more like this with opal inside of it. Here's an example from the Smith bed, also with opal inside. The Smith bed is this stuff up here with this ashy gray matrix. Multicolored plumes. I don't have any truly exceptional examples, but this stuff is a classic for a reason. Really cool detail. Hard to confuse for anything else. This is a pretty iconic material. This is one of the favorites in my collection. You got plumes on opal and agate. Lots of detail, lots of variety and color. These also illustrate what I was talking about earlier. These plumes are clearly three-dimensional. They have volume to them. So I would not call this dendritic. This is definitely plume. And to round it out, this is Nydegger Ranch Plume from outside of Post, Oregon. White to cream to sometimes yellow-colored plumes on a very clear agate background. Also hard to mistake for anything else. Thick, bold plumes. Here's a big old rough chunk. There are many other examples of Oregon plume that I didn't cover here. Sheep Creek, Borthwick, Amity, other beds from Richardson's, plume eggs from the Ochocos, material from the Maui Mountains, just to name a few. The ones I covered are the most common ones you'll see most of the time in collections and for sale online. Hope you learned something. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. And today